Tracks for this is present on is Beat 54, a track that is thoroughly uplifting with a sense of the smooth, funky retroness. And again, when those strings come in, sampled or not, they create this just brilliant escapist vibe that's actually quite similar to some of the stuff on the Avalanche's debut album. You know, like the track, Since I Left You, I found a world so blue. Yeah, I can't sing, but anyhow, just insert those miners dancing in the video. By miners, I mean coal miners, not children. Please don't arrest me, FBI, I'm going to cut this joke out. So again, you have another track that captures the core of what made jungle popular in the first place. Tracks that are smooth, funky and danceable, but also chilled and cool. And to be fair, can get quite a bit repetitive like most of their stuff. But on the whole, this particular track just works, and I particularly love the guitar line in the third section. The other track where this 1940s retroness is shown is on the track Consurmyne, which is where the semi-spooky and atmospheric piano sound sounds like it's coming through sampled in. And this actually reminds me of a track on their debut album called Smoking Pixels, which sounded very cinematic, almost Tarantino-esque in its sound. But again, this was just sort of like a 2-minute interlude. But here, we're actually seeing it getting expanded on in full tracks like the two I've just mentioned. And this is what I can love about a follow-up, when you have great parts of a debut album which haven't quite been worked out yet, but then being fully expanded on and fleshed out on great tracks on the second. I said where this second jungle album excels far more than the first album is in pacing, in variation, in creating more diversity amongst the tracks. And one of the ways it does this is how it becomes a little bit weirder in the second half, like they tried this on the debut, but it just sounded like the exact same tracks, but they just added some weird voice effects to it. But they do it a lot more evidently on this album, particularly on the track Mama, where they still do those weird voice effects as a way of going, oh look, we're weirder, but this expands through the whole track now, where the rhythm's a little bit odd, the electronics in it are more wobbly, just has an overall more quirky feel, which actually seems to lean more towards the indie element of their sound, particularly coming from bands like Glass Animals, for instance. Another track that does well in terms of this experimental change of pace is Home, which sounds a lot more atmospheric and almost mourning, where the synthesizers sound like an organ, and that's pretty much all there is in the background. It sounds very stripped back with just the singer, the vocalist singing away and sounding quite vulnerable. It doesn't quite work, because again, I can see why people have issues with the vocalists in Jungle, particularly because he's got a very high voice, which works well when being funky, but when just singing can come across as a bit too squeaky and screechy. But on the whole, it seems to work on this track, where he's trying to sound a bit more vulnerable and bruised, which I think reflects what the band were aiming for with this album, because in interviews they have said that they've lost friends over these past 4 years and attempted to show this more human, vulnerable and emotional side of the band on this album. And I'd say this is the key track where that comes across. I'd say it actually does it quite well. It actually does that quite really well, I'd say. And it's actually an enjoyable track, I'd say. It just keeps in their more relaxed vibe, particularly the drip-dropping sounds in the background, which sounds sort of like a Jean-Michel Jarre synth, but just help to make this a really relaxing track. And all of this album rounds off on a highlight, on the track that is Pray. Again, like so much of this album, captures what initially made Jungle a great band with the high-pitched, funky vocals and funky vibe. Funk, funk, funk! But, alas, once again, it feels refreshed and enlivened by these new developments on this album, because again, alongside the smooth, jazzy bass lines, you then suddenly have these classical, Hollywood-esque violins coming in, and then along with the vocals, which are now alongside this, come across as a lot more gospel-esque, creating a finale that's hugely cool and smooth, but feels this time more hugely uplifting and like a breath of fresh air for both the audience and the band. So, in conclusion, how do I rate this album? Really well. After a misfire of a debut album, and the huge risk of it being samey, particularly with the misfire of a first single from this album, they have made a brilliant album, expanding on their sound and continuing it to be chilled, feel good and escapist. An album that is great to dance or lay back to, whilst making it a more varied and fulfilling experience. They have gone from making an album that was seemed a throwaway to making an album that actually seemed great in itself, explicitly mixing the old and the new, the cool of the 80s and the atmospheric wonder of the 1940s. The tracks, particularly Pray, now feel that they actually have a sense of power and a bit of oomph to them. I was prepared to hate this. I was really prepared to hate this. In fact, when I started drafting this review, it was actually full on a mega hate blast into Happy Man and Smile. Now, that's what I call second time lucky. As for best tracks, I'd say it's definitely the ones that capture the core elements of this album, particularly the 80s heavy tracks, as with Casio, Cherry and Heavy California, and the 90s-40s reminiscent tracks with Consurmyne and Pray. As for the worst, definitely the ones that are that sodden old jungle by numbers, as with Smile and Happy Man. On the whole, I give this album a solid 8 out of 10. And if you're looking for similar stuff to this, I'd say I'd definitely recommend the indie bands I mentioned with a similar sound to Jungle on the whole, particularly TV on the Radio, specifically their third album, Dear Science, which was in fact their most commercial, and also Glass Animals, who are a hugely fun band from the past few years. If you want some more smooth, chilled out funkiness, I'd definitely go for Jamiroquai's Emergency on Planet Earth. Or if you want some more chilled, laid-back funk and soul, but that has that more indie-ish, almost semi-electronic vibe in the background, or trip-hop vibe in the background, as I'm about to correct with this, I'd hugely recommend Jamie Woon's hugely underrated second album, it's actually called Making Time. Well, Movement's a great track on it anyway. Again, keeping in with this vibe of stuff that you can just relax to, I'm putting 07's compilation record in because it's one of my all-time favourite albums, so I'm trying to shove that in again. If you want some more, and that basically just something that I thought had a similar vibe and how it's you know what, just buy the Subtract album, I've recommended it enough times. And again, if you want something that has an all-round retro, funky and chilled out vibe, go for another hugely underrated album, The Renaissance by Q-Tip. Basically a hip-hop album for people that don't like hip-hop because it's just pure bliss. For me, 2018 has been a year where music's been very hit and miss, not really any standouts in the slightest for me. So I'd definitely get Jungle Forever to get an album that basically just encapsulates what music's all about. You just enjoy yourself. That was the track Enjoy Yourself by St. Pepsi. Have a great day. Thanks to Banana Nan. So long! I cannot sing and I cannot dance, so I'll review these albums instead. Yeah!